Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling. And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Justin Harris, and we're going to talk about all things mergers and acquisitions, and primarily on the website side. You are with Website Closers, is that correct? Cool.
That's right.
I always love to start with the origin story, kind of how did you end up here? How did you, the running joke is still, I still love it. And just say, hey, you were born and then you ended up on a show about mergers and acquisitions. How in the hell did you end up here? Kind of give us your origin story and let people know where you come from and how did you get into this space?
Yeah, great question. So post college, I actually worked for a nonprofit for a few years, and then after that, for a large security systems company. And the good thing about that company was it was pretty pro kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So I had a lot of freedom to do things, to grow the territory that I had. And for me, really, that was the entrepreneurial itch. Kind of got scratched through that. So after about 5 years there, I said, hey, I want to do something on my own. And a good friend from college, we started chatting, and he was in a similar boat. He had helped start a fundraising company, but was talking about doing something new. So we were good friends. Our skill sets complemented each other. So we started, the first company we actually started was called Fire Seeds, and it was a recruiting firm that really focused on leadership and development. It focused on culture, developing the right culture and then helping match good candidates with companies and making sure it was a culture fit. So, because we recognized that that was a big part of longevity for new employees, if it was a good culture fit, not just a skill set fit. But along with that, as we were doing that and we were doing a lot of leadership development across the table, we started figuring out that we can't scale this the way we're doing it now. So we just started brainstorming, and that turned into a software product. So we built a software platform that helped companies scale their leadership development platform, programs throughout their companies, whether they had 10 folks involved or 500 or 5,000, it didn't really matter. So that was my first step into software, and then really into the space. And so that was probably, 14, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully we were able to grow it. And we ended up with a client with Chick-fil-A really hopped on board. Their operators liked it a lot. It seemed to be a good fit for them. And that really helped us take off because honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. We had never done software, but we'd never built anything like that before. And for me, it was a really big learning curve, but it was a lot of fun to be a part of that. So that was really how I got my toe dipped into this initially. And then about 6 years ago, ended up exiting those two companies. I was a minority partner, sold my shares, and was able then to kind of step more into a little bit more what I'm doing now. So started looking for companies to purchase. And in the middle of that said, I want to, after the exit, and then obviously looking for things to purchase, said, man, I really, from a broker's perspective, that's where that itch kind of came up. I said, wow, I haven't had a great experience with the brokers that I dealt with. There was just some professionalism and very basic things that I know people that are looking for companies deal with when they're talking to brokers. And I thought we can do this better. So in the middle of that, bought a couple of e-commerce brands, was introduced to Website Closers. And through that process, I guess about 3 years ago now, I actually started with Website Closers just because I was pretty impressed with their team and the group and the longevity. So that was a little bit of my story of how I kind of got to where I am now.
And I get it. When I first got into this space, one of my friends looked around and he ended up buying a brokerage, business brokerage of all things, a unit of one of the franchise business brokers. And he said, hey, in Oklahoma, there's no licensing requirement at all. He's like, yeah, you want to be a business broker too? And I was like, he goes, I need business brokers. You're a great marketer. And I was like, well, what kind of tests and stuff ought to take is what I was asking him. And I said, because I just bought a pest control company to employ some friends and relatives that used to work at it. and realized I didn't wanna hang my shingle on his old name because of some stuff he had done. So I went out and took all those tests. I'm really good at reading a book and taking the test. So I took all the tests and got all the licenses myself because it was easier to do that than, I had one cousin that I probably would that was works there that I would have trusted with it, but he doesn't take tests as well as I do. And then anybody else is pretty new. So I was like, I have to have something I can hang this person on. So anyway, I was thinking I'm gonna take some tests. And he's like, "Oh no, I just print a business card and put your name on it." And I was thinking, okay. And so I started looking that up and realizing a lot of states are like that, right? Even here in
Yeah.
California
Yeah.
where everything's overregulated, you have to be a business to be a business broker here, you just have to be a commercial real estate broker. And there's absolutely no commonality in my mind between the 2.
I would agree with that.
And the one of the things that I seen really fast with not necessarily him, he's really geared for it. You're constantly getting a hold of business owners who think they wanna sell but are unprepared. And
That's
I can
right.
see how fast you can get jaded. So I when I first got into this, I thought most business brokers are absolutely horrible, but after being in it for 2 or 3 years and I do a lot of off-market conversations, and I have to sort through what they give me for papers and stuff. I can see why these guys are who they are and act the way they act. Even the bad brokers, a lot of these guys are just hunting for listing fees. They're trying to make a living in a world where most of the people aren't giving them something that's easily sellable, right?
That's right. And yeah, that's a great it's a common thing that we see. I'll talk to 3 or 4 business owners this week, and I would say one of the 4, maybe 25% are adequately prepared, that they've got financials that look good, that a buyer would actually want to review. They have got systems in place that help them do what they do well. I mean, and that's a big thing. So if I'm buying a business and I'm trying to put my hat on of a buyer and I'm talking to these sellers, I'm really encouraging them, put yourself in their shoes. What are they trying to buy? They're trying to buy something that's going to be consistent with cash flow, something that is not just going to be another job for them. And if that's the case, then do you have just good financial statements that they can read and assess what the risk is going to be? Do you have some good systems in place and a good team in place to make sure that they don't feel like that they're just buying a 40 or 50-hour a week job? And the beauty of it is in the tech space, especially with all the tools that people have right now at their disposal, you can do that. You can set up something that would only take an owner, 5, 10 hours a week to operate and find a really good buyer if you set it up well and really position yourself to sell it for an extra turn on the earnings if you've done that. Otherwise, it doesn't set them up for success to exit and they end up compromising their exit price, right? Because those things just aren't in place. And so then you're kind of scrambling to put something together to make it look as good as you can as a broker, and that's frustrating. And again, we know how how buyers view that, right? They look at those things and they go, gosh, either they have a bad view of the broker at that point or potentially just a bad view of the seller because things aren't ready.
And it hurts both the buyer because you wasted the buyer's time, and it hurts the seller because and the brokerage, because now, they're in a position where, like, if you're having to piece something together and make it work, as a buyer, my red flag once my red flag goes up, whether it's on you, there's a double risk factor when I work with brokers. If my red flags go up and I start being concerned about the broker or the broker's integrity or the broker's communication ability to communicate what I need, because sometimes they work as an intermediary and talk to the buyer more than they give you direct access. If they're playing that game, I have to worry about, are they representing what I'm saying in the way I'm saying it? So if once those red flags go up, you got twice the chance where yeah, I'm just not going any further with this. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, and there's so many I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. I was just gonna say, well, and there's so many other listings out there. I mean,
Hmm.
tomorrow they're going to get, if they've signed up for email notifications from a few different brokerages, depending on what space they're looking in, they're going to get 3 or 4 new emails tomorrow with new opportunities. And one of those is going to look pretty good and they're going to inquire about it. And if the listing that I've got or that any broker may have, like you're saying, if it doesn't exude trust and professionalism whenever they get the information, then yeah, if I'm a buyer, I'm just moving to the next listing because I don't have time to waste time on fighting for financials, finding for information about employees or whatever systems you may or may not have in place because they weren't prepared in the first place.
Most of the acquisition entrepreneurs I know, if they're getting deals done at all, they're talking to, they got to. the whole process, and we tell people all the time this is deal flow, right? You have to have deal flow. You have to be talking to 3, 4, 5, 10 sellers per week. And then once you get serious, it's about 1 or 2 of them. It's okay to, lock down and do that. But there's such a probability it won't get to the other end from either something you find or something they find that just won't work. If you really want to get anything done, you've got to get the deal flow up. Like these days, I don't necessarily, for health and personal reasons, I don't necessarily want to require anything that requires more than 10 or 20 or 30 hours a week of my time. So I play a role of like fractional a growth officer for various roll ups and stuff. So I'll go out and source deals for them. I'll negotiate deals. I'll do the initial calls and stuff for a piece of equity. And when we do that, we've got to line up, 6 or 8 calls a week is the goal, even for the ones that are smaller teams. And for the bigger teams, we want to line up more than that. And it's because it's a numbers game, especially on these off market. Like we do a lot of off market reach out. So in the same way you as a broker, you have to do a lot of off market reach out because if they're on market, they're not yours, right?
That's right.
It takes quite a few to get, okay, this is something that's gonna really work. This guy's gonna do the work needed to get it to the other end. In some realm, we have to put on that broker hat because if you take something off market, you have to educate the seller too, as to what to expect. This is the next step is we're gonna have a couple conversations with you. We're gonna get some basic information. If we like it, we'll give you an LOI. Well, what's that? Okay, well, an LOI, you have to educate them, say, "Wait, a broker would." So you gotta put that hat on. What is your what is your method of, quickly assessing whether somebody can get to the other end, whether they're gonna do the work?
Yeah, great question. I think initially I'm okay if they don't have all of their systems and everything documented. We can work through some of that.
Mhm,
But to me, the first phase is just have they kept good financial records? If they have, we're on step 6. We because that to me is such a massive step. It's the first thing any buyer's going to look at. And I think if they've just got good financial records for the last few years that they've been in business, we can do a lot with that. We can work through making sure that people systems are documented properly or building, spreadsheets to make sure they've got kind of ducks in a row from other systems and processes. But gosh, if they've got the financials right, then again we can do a lot with that. And I think a big part of that too is if they've had in mind the last 2 or 3 years, if they've been thinking about an exit and the way they've structured their taxes, the way they've processed through their deductions and what they've written off with the business, just asking some small questions like that and making sure those financials are look the way they're supposed to. What it does is it really does build trust with the potential buyer, because whenever you put that out there and they get those and they're clean,
mhm.
and if they're done properly, they answer 6 or 7 out of 10 questions that a buyer's got because they're done well. Well, again, if I've got those, man, we're set up for a lot of success, and that's gonna help us much more get to the finish line. Now, outside of that, a big piece that we run into would be how dependent is it on the owner? If they've got good financials and they've got good leadership or systems in place so that it's not as dependent on the owner, huge plus. We can get to the finish line. And then the third thing that I think about is to ensure that post listing that we don't take a dive,
Mhm.
because if they don't take their foot off the gas with the business, that's one of the biggest conversations that I have with potential sellers is, hey, listen, you've done well. You've shown growth the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it may look like. The next 6 months are the most critical months to make sure that you don't take your foot off the gas, because all that does, if there's a significant dip for whatever reason, outside of super clearly explainable circumstances, and even with that, sometimes it's gonna scare people off. So I'm like, whenever we list this thing, don't think that it's sold and you're sitting on the beach at the Caribbean. We're not there yet. We want to get you there, but we're not there. And in the meantime, I need you to work twice as hard as you did before to make sure these next 3 to 6 months, the numbers look the way they're supposed to look. And if they do, we're going to get you to the finish line.
Do you find that what I find in the website space, at least, is a lot of times people are selling because they've got another project or they're selling because for some reason, maybe they're just done with this particular one, like, they're wanting to do something new, and it's not usually like if everybody talks about, like, the silver tsunami or the aging out of the population. I don't see that in the website space so much. I'm 52 and like kind of website space started in my generation. I remember, logging into Prodigy and AOL. So, like anybody much older than me, probably not running a e-commerce site that they started from scratch. Maybe a few years older, but not much. So that said, not a lot of people are trying to retire out of the website space, I don't think, permanently. They might think they are, think they're going to get a retirement worthy check. But that said, what I find a lot of times is when I talk to these guys, they have another project, they minimize the one they're trying to sell to me a year ago, thinking if they just cut down the number of hours, they even, like, cut their staff in half for a year, like, just keep the most profitable things around, and they try to run the minimum thing they can run, and the problem is, like, yeah, we used to do 3,000,000 and now we do 600,000 this year, but I only work on it for an hour a week. Like, I can't pay, and then they want the money what would be worth. Like, if you did X, Y, and Z, you'll be back up to 3,000,000. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
yeah, you also opened the door for 6 other competitors in that time frame, and no, I can't get back to 3,000,000 as easily as you think. Companies are bought and sold off of their current performance, not their past performance. Like, what is it doing now? What did it do
That's
last month?
right.
What did it do the last 12 months? What did it do the last 36 months? We look back that far to see kind of which way is it trending. If it's not the average of that, other people think it's, well, over the last 36 months, I would average 1,500,000. It's like, no, right now you're trended to make 600K this year, right?
That's right.
It's off
Yeah,
your
yeah, and I
current
think that's a
status.
right. I think when it comes to the silver tsunami that you talked about earlier, the service businesses, I mean, all those would be in that bucket. But I
Mhm,
agree, in the tech space, that's just not the case. But what we do see, what we do see for exits is similar to what you're saying. We see, I see a lot of. I've got multiple projects. I'm not passionate about this one anymore. Or you just fill in the blank. I don't
yeah,
time, passion. Something else is growing faster, and then, like you say, they take their foot off the gas. But you're right. A lot of times they do want the numbers that they were generating 2 or 3 years ago from an exit perspective, and they just have to realize things just change too fast in this space. And if you're trailing 12 months, well, we're gonna feel that. We're gonna feel that because if you can remain consistent or even just with slight growth, what I tell sellers all the time, we can sell your business. So now if this thing drops off a cliff, has dropped off a cliff, or is that happens during the listing process, I said, that's when we have a hard time selling.
yeah.
I said, but if you can at least just remain consistent, then we can find you a buyer. I guarantee you that as long as you're reasonable with the multiple. And that's something, those are some big conversations we're having right now as well. Brand new listing that went out this week. What, 4 years ago, he was offered exact same numbers. They're very, very steady, significantly more than what we could go to market at right now. And I just had to explain to him that it's not the same. It's not 2020. It's not 2019. It's not even 2021, kind of pre Russia. I said, it's just not, we're not there right now. And here's reality. And if you're okay with reality, then we can go to market. And I think we can find you a buyer. If you're not okay with that, we're going to have a hard time. I'm just going to be honest with you.
A lot of the SaaS businesses I see are in that in that thing, 'cause SaaS was extremely highly valued in 2019, 2018, 22, 2020, and then it's slowly, I don't know how slowly, at some point it shifted and it's pretty much back into the normal thing with anything that has recurring revenue. It's not as much as your normal website, but anything that has a recurring revenue model, SaaS isn't an outlier like it used to be, I don't think anyway.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. And then what we tell them is say, hey, look, especially with website closures, like we've been around for a really long time. We've got massive buyer lists.
mm,
So we will tell the market will tell us what they think.
mhm,
We can go to market at a price because we'll give them a range.
mhm,
Typically, we'll say, hey, here's a valuation range based off what we think, based on what we're seeing with the trends with the numbers. And then we ultimately let them decide where in that range do you want to be. And that's going to depend on how quickly do you want to sell? Do you feel very confident that your numbers are going to trend in the right direction while we have this thing listed? So we're kind of going through the different things. I said, but ultimately, we're going to get people looking at this and they're going to give us a lot of feedback because we're going to get probably 100 plus NDA signed on this thing. We're going to make sure they're qualified and we're going to have conversations. We're going to share information. And guess what? Based off of the initial either IOIs or LOIs that we get in, they're going to tell us after 3 or 4 of those, we're going to see some pretty clear trends normally of where prices are coming in for whatever particular type of business it is. And sometimes that's a bit shocking to the sellers, But we have to tell them, look, we don't necessarily set the market. The market is going to tell us what they think your business is worth at any given point in time. And that's obviously been up and down a lot over the last few years.
What do you see the market, what's it doing now with all the election year and the insecurity of whether or not we're in a recession or depression or economic downturn or whatever you want to call it? And then you got on the other side, you got Bitcoin hitting record highs and other stuff, and a lot of these guys play in that realm. A lot of these website guys
Yeah.
play in that Bitcoin realm also. What do you see the current market trend? Is it holding steady, or how are the website side of the mergers and acquisitions of small, medium businesses? What does the website side of it look like?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing right now is if you compare right now the number of buyers in the market to 2, 3 years ago, especially pre-Russia, Ukraine and pre-interest hike rates, we see there are fewer buyers. So if I put a listing out today and looked at the number of requests I get for NDAs and all the things, it would probably be 20 to 25% less than it was a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
With that said, the buyers that we do have are good buyers. They understand now they're good buyers. They've got cash. They're ready to go, but they also recognize where the market is with the cost of money. Interest rates are higher. So it has pushed the multiples down. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing fewer overall buyers, but the buyers are good buyers. They're ready. They're smart because they understand that right now is a good time to get a good deal, especially if you compare it to something that might have gone for a 5 to 7x on, seller discretionary earnings, which is kind of what we work on in our space with most of the e-commerce brands. Well, now it's going to be 3 to 4. So if I can take something that 3 years ago I would have had to pay 5x for, and I can get it now for three, it's a pretty good investment.
It is. The thing that comes to my mind in that when you said that there's 25% or some 20 to 25% less buyers now, is I think that one of the culprits to that is it's a lot more popular now than it was 4 or 5 years ago to buy a business. There are more ETA programs in all the universities. 15 years ago, it was just Stanford and Harvard and the Ivies were teaching ETA at all. I have my MBA, and I don't remember the word ever coming up, like, buy a business. It was never even offered in our school. The,
Wow.
Now it's like it's very common. Almost all good MBA programs have an ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition program. So I think a lot of your buyers might have moved into what's currently the hype, right? So where you're
Yeah.
seeing a
Yeah.
20 to 25% reduction in buyers of the website and e-commerce businesses and stuff, I think that if you talk to the brokers on the other side of the fence that are selling those mom and pop services, home services, and those type of stuff, they'll tell you that they got more buyers coming into the market than they've ever had.
I
So,
could totally see that. Totally see that. And I think for us as well in this space, 2 or 3 years ago, the aggregators were flooding the market,
yeah,
right? And those guys have figured out that, man, this is a little bit harder to do than we thought. And so you're seeing lots of them have issues right now. And so most of them, we get very few requests now from aggregators when we put deals out, especially even if they're in their ideal size. I mean, a few years ago, though, you would just get those things left and right. We would get requests from aggregators daily, and now if I get one or two of those guys a month, it's I'm impressed with that. So
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and I'm gonna blame Amazon on that. So I'll give you a reason why. When the aggregators bought up all the mom and pop shops, Amazon was really geared towards all the mom and pops, making sure that those guys could make money. And it's a lot harder for them to squeeze them because they need larger profit margins to succeed. They're less efficient. Smaller businesses happen to be less efficient. Not right, wrong, good, nor bad. It's just so, right? It's you just can't be as efficient at a $1 to $2 million range as you can when you're at 50, 60, $100 million range, right? You can't live on a 3% profit margin if you're a $2 million business, but you can if you're a $25 million business, right? So when they got big, the bigger and bigger these aggregators got, the more comfortable Amazon got with squeezing those guys. And to be honest, the rules and the way that Amazon changed the way they behave on a lot of those things is one of the reasons I won't buy an e-commerce business today. You're one decision away of Amazon deciding they're going to create a generic for your product, or, want to be in your space, or for some reason you missed a shipping date and they delist you, and all of a sudden you're one bad decision away from a catastrophic change in your ability to earn a living. That's what and there's other platforms too, but, anybody that's in the e-commerce space selling anything is probably gonna be selling it on Amazon, and Amazon's probably
That's
gonna
right.
be at least 60% of their income. And had they done what they did, if the aggregators not bought all the mom and pop shops and Amazon went to squeezing and doing what they were doing, there would have been a revolt. It would have hurt Amazon because people click together, especially small business owners, we would, it's very possible we boycott and all move to Shopify, right? And then all of a sudden Amazon's hurt. The big guys won't do that. They
That's
can't.
right.
They have shareholders, they have investors. Their job is to make consistent money. An entrepreneur will stub his big toe on purpose if you make him mad enough, right? Where a big corporation can't.
Yeah, they can't. That's right.
So,
That's right. You say that we from my perspective, so obviously kind of my day job is with website closers and brokering businesses. Obviously got into that from buying, selling the whole thing. So currently I have a couple of e-commerce brands and we do candles, we do anything with a scent. We do, right? Luxury detergents, candles, room sprays, that kind of thing. Well, as I was looking at things to purchase, one of the questions that we asked was, okay, could somebody overseas, let's just say, like you were saying, what can happen on Amazon? Let's say I'm making my widget at a factory over in Asia, and then that particular factory decides they want to get in the game and they can sell it cheaper than you, and they can make a very similar widget, even if it's not exactly your widget, and sell it on Amazon. And so one of our things was, how can we purchase a business? Because we ended up purchasing a couple of these brands where the manufacturing was stateside and we could create a little bit of a moat to help us with that. And we needed multiple sales channels. So that's kind of how we ended up with what we're doing right now. We said, how can we create it here
mhm,
and create enough of a variation so that someone overseas couldn't just hop into Amazon and take our listing and do that type of thing. So that was some criteria that we think about. But to be honest with you, Amazon still is a big player. For one of our brands, it's definitely our largest channel. For the other brand, thankfully, we're pretty diversified for the other brand. But for one of them, yeah, if they decide tomorrow to shut some of our listings down, it's going to be trouble. And so that's definitely a danger. Well, kind of in light of some of that, one of the things that we're thinking about, and when I say me and a couple of the guys that have
mhm,
some of these businesses, the brands, we're thinking, how do we kind of combine the service based thing that's happening right now and e-commerce space? And so what our next kind of steps would be, we've got these brands
mhm,
for candles, detergents, that type of thing. We weren't really happy with the manufacturing company that was doing them. So then we said, well, okay, let's start a small manufacturing company. So we've done that just outside here in Birmingham. We've got a little, warehouse, small manufacturing. We make everything. So then we're trying to go, how do we keep pushing this to streamline this and to bring everything under one unit? So then the next steps would be we're trying to purchase a distribution business here in Birmingham, and they distribute glass and wax and those types of things. And so we would probably create a couple of our own brands of that and then have the distribution. So we're really trying to push down into, how do we kind of combine this e-commerce piece that we've got with manufacturing and then with distribution. So that way we can say, okay, if this jar that we're using for our candle, how do we make money off that same jar 3 or 4 times? Right.
right.
So that's kind of what we're trying to think right now, to push kind of beyond just this product and this e-commerce, even though a lot of people want the simplicity of that. I mean, we actually, with our small manufacturing company that we have right now, we actually make candles for other brands. And what those people want is, they say, hey, we want you to do everything. Like, they're really good at marketing and creativity. So they come up with the candle brand and their product, and they do all the marketing. We make it and we'll ship it for them. We act as kind of a mini 3PL for them. So they love that, because they don't have to be, they just get to do what they enjoy, which is, we want to be creative and work these brands, and we're okay doing some of the ugly work
What Why
that
not grow
it
that
takes to make
more?
that happen.
That's the exact business model of the vitamin industry. If you understand the vitamin industry, I go and I buy me a bottle of vitamins. This is Joe Rogan stuff, and works pretty good. That
Yeah,
said, he didn't go and buy a lab and do everything else. He formulated something that he liked to use, gave him some ingredients. He tested it. He liked it. And then I pay $89 a bottle for this crap, and he probably pays $2 a bottle for some manufacturing place that all they do is manufacture vitamins, puts the right pellets in the capsules. You could be
that's
that
right.
guy in the candle industry. It's like, look, we'll build whatever candle you want, slap whatever label on it you want, and because there's quite a few people. in the entrepreneur safe space that make good money selling candles, right?
Yep.
Custom scented candles, prank candles that have funky scents to you name it out there. There's always a good podcast out there with some gal who or guy who is doing, 1, 2, $3 million a year, 4, $500,000 a year selling scented candles out of their garage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and they get to a point to where they can't. They might have started making them in their kitchen, but that can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And what do they love? They love the creative aspect of it. They don't necessarily love having to stick a wick in a jar
Mm,
and do all the things that go with that. So yeah, I think our goal there would be let's keep capturing. Again, we're making for the brands that we've got. We're making for 2 or 3 other brands right now.
mhm.
To slowly grow that to say, hey, once you get past your kitchen and you don't want to have to worry about making, shipping, you just want to do the creative piece that you love. Let us handle the rest. So, but again, I do enjoy kind of combining that kind of the service aspect of it with service and manufacturing, and then kind of how do we keep pushing up the chain,
Mhm.
supply chain from that. And a big reason for that would be yes, to protect what we're doing because I don't want if for some reason one of the brands that we have, Amazon decides to turn a switch and it messes us up. Well, hopefully we've got these other revenue streams that are kind of helping do that from a cash flow perspective.
In my marketing mind, my MBA of marketing wants me to say, the best way to protect yourself on Amazon is to build a brand, right? Be the Febreze of Amazon. You don't have to be Febreze. You don't have to spend $50 million a year on marketing, but find some way that people want your brand on there, right? When they go there, they're not searching for scented candles. They're searching for your scented, your brand name. And a lot of times that has to do with, putting it out there in random places, getting the name known. There's guerrilla tactics, guerrilla marketing tactics that can get that done, micro influencers, whatever you wanna do, but I think that's the biggest in this mergers and acquisitions of small to medium business, if I was looking to be in the e-commerce space, I would only go in 2 ways. It has to have a great brand that everybody recognizes or that we can build upon,
Mhm.
and then if Amazon did something to the brand, people would be upset because 'cause they're looking for that. They're not looking for T-shirt, they're looking for freaking Hanes tagless, right? Because that's the one they wear. If you can create brand loyalty, it's pretty strong.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. And I think for if I'm thinking about this is a good case study. So we've got the 2 brands that we've got
Mhm.
from that are in the one we put on Amazon pretty early.
Mm,
And so our main channel now is probably 70% of the sales are Amazon, the rest are
yeah.
Shopify. And just now though, we're trying to get into do wholesale for that brand and get into some retail stores. Well, the interesting part was this the other brand that we've got, the lady that we bought it from initially, she was in boutiques. Just a few, not a lot,
Mhm.
but that was kind of the niche. So we said, well, let's push pretty hard into that. So we pushed on our website, obviously, just Shopify, and then we pushed into retail stores, small boutique stores. So now we're probably in, I don't know, 250 stores ish, kind of by the end of the year, probably 300. But the interesting thing is we just took a few of those products and put them onto Amazon. And now you can tell from a search perspective, even though we've just got it's just a couple of our luxury detergents that are on there. It's really nice because now people are going onto Amazon and searching for that specific thing. And we're getting set. We haven't run a single ad, but because we're in the boutiques, it's created that demand,
Yeah.
like you're saying, which is where the other one now, the interesting part is the other one, because we're on Amazon now, it's really hard to go backwards.
Mm.
So it's really hard now to go into the boutiques because they're like, well, you're on Amazon. But if you're in 250, 300, 400 stores first, and then you move into Amazon, the boutiques don't care because they're still getting pretty good traction and they're
Right.
from the ladies that are walking into the stores. But now that recognition on Amazon is much better. So I wish we would have done the first brand that way. There's a couple, multiple reasons for that. But now that I'm saying that, it really kind of resonates with what you're saying. We've created, even though it's small, it's a microcosm of something, of a Febreze or something like that. They're going there to look for that specific brand, and that's what they want.
Something that worked for another gentleman we were talking to is he went from Amazon, he wanted to take it into the store base, right, like you were saying, and he was getting pushback from all the stores that, "Hey, well, you're already on Amazon, we don't wanna compete with that, people can just order your stuff." And what he did is he created a product line just for the stores. It was slightly different, a little bit premium, and you can only get that at the boutiques, right? So and he would even, I think for one of the products, they just made a bigger one, like there was a larger size or whatever, or I forgot what it was, but you just changed it up a little bit and said, everybody knew you could only get one of these if you went to your local. I think I even ended up, I forgot what the product was. It was in the space of home goods. It wasn't candles, but it
Yeah.
was something like that. It might have been organic soaps or, it was some type of organic soap or cleaning product. Anyway, you could only get that particular scent in CVS. Like, he did things for he got into CVS and he made 3 different things for just them, and that's how he got into some of the big box stores and stuff, is he did something unique to them. And then people knew that if you liked this product and you wanted the, I don't know, the lemony fresh or whatever, you had to go to a particular place. So there's always a way to single out your brand and say, well, you can only get this in the boutique shops, right?
Yeah. That's actually a great idea. That's a really great idea,
Yeah.
actually, and a good approach to it. Because I don't think our plan would never be to put everything onto Amazon. So
Right.
I think being strategic about that, I think is probably gonna be the way to go. So no, that's I like it.
And then they could charge a little bit of a premium too, because they need to. They got a bigger margin to cover. They got rent. They don't get to share
Yep.
a million square foot of a warehouse space that's 50 foot tall and have robots move their stuff around. Unfortunately, the cost per square inch of their shelf space is more than your Amazon warehouse in a photo. So yeah, I get that. Let's talk a little bit about where you see the e-commerce space going, the SaaS business going, and I'm most
Mhm.
interested in what your gut feel is on where AI and current technologies and near-term future. I don't want anybody to predict more than a year, because with AI, you don't know what's gonna happen. 12 say anybody that tells me they know exactly what's gonna happen in AI in the next 6 months better work for OpenAI or one of the top dogs, or they're just pulling out of
That's
there.
right.
But what is your gut feel on where this is going? Because I've kinda slowed down on looking at content sites, which is one of the things I look for because of the impact of AI and the way that Google is delivering content and Bing is delivering content. I think a lot of these content sites might go to the wayside, because when you're looking for an answer, Google and the AI is just gonna answer it right in the search engine.
Yeah,
You
it's
won't
just
have to
answer
look at
for
a
you.
website,
That's right.
right? Right?
That's right. No, and I agree. I think we'll see valuations of those continue to drop because
Mhm,
traffic's gonna drop. I think it can be super helpful for small when I think about smaller e-commerce brands, we just helped a seller exit, and she basically her e-commerce business was dry goods, like for bakery, baked
mhm,
goods, but it's dry goods. So think it's a mug cake in a pouch and mails it to you, and then you can make the mug cake or whatever. But it was specifically for nursing women. Well, she did a great job of leveraging Shopify's tools for AI to create her listings
mhm.
because she's not a great writer. She's not, but if she could put in there, hey, this is gluten free and it's this, she puts 4 or 5 bullet points, and now all of a sudden she can leverage AI to create a fantastic listing that's going to help her dramatically on Google when people are looking for specific things related to lactation and milk production and that product. So to me, I think if I'm in that space, so if I'm looking for, say, a content site or something like that, or if I currently have one that I'm trying to sell, you better just get your expectations right because it's going to be more challenging. I think that's just kind of the way it is. But I think if you're someone like her or someone purchasing that business, or you're trying to create you're in that space when you're going, how do I leverage this to create listings and content, whether that's for Amazon, whether that's for Shopify, whatever that might look like. Now all of a sudden the game's changed for that person because they don't have to be super SEO. They don't have to be super, they can leverage it to create things that are going to make a lot of sense and hopefully get a lot more conversions for them because the searchability jumps through the roof with leveraging it the right way.
There's both a positive and negative, right? I'm a trained copywriter. I have a master's degree in marketing. I've been studied under Dan Kennedy for a while. I've read every copywriting.
Mhm.
I probably have 30 copywriting books still with me. Big fan of the space. I can tell you right now that as it stands, ChatGPT with the right training, like you tell it who to follow and how to write and like to follow the ADA print, like what model of copywriting you want done. It is a better copywriter than I am, and it's a better copywriter, and I've spent tens of thousands of dollars in years training, and it's a better copywriter probably than any five-figure copywriter you're gonna get, meaning that if you called me today and said, "Hey, I want you to revamp all the sales copy on my website," And I don't do this anymore, but if you did that a year or 2 ago and said, "Hey, I want you to rewrite my landing page, rewrite my sales copy and stuff," I'd have told you, "Look, it's gonna take 2 to 3 weeks. I need to really understand your target demographics and stuff, and I'm gonna charge you probably 25,000 bucks at minimum to even consider it." In 30 seconds flat, I can do the same amount of work on AI now, and it's better than what I would have done. It's if you're out there and you own products and you got a website and you're not using AI for your copy, you're not being competitive. That's the other side. I said there's 2 sides of this coin, right? If you're not willing to pay, I'd say more than 100 grand for your copy, you're not gonna be able to outdo a ChatGPT trained well. If you're willing to pay more than that, there are copywriters out there that'll smoke ChatGPT. It is a mid-level, decent level copywriter. It is not a top level one yet. If you're willing to go out and I know a lot of those guys, right? If you wanna go pay one of the Dan Kennedy level guys 100 grand to walk in the door and look at your stuff, 2 or 300 grand by the time you get done with all your sales letters and your ad copy and all the other stuff you need done, it's gonna beat it. But other than that, if you're not at that level in business and you just need somebody to write you some copy, ChatGPT is incredibly good. That said, everybody's using it now. So now if you're not using I told you there's 2 sides of this coin. Now if you're not using it and you don't put your own product descriptions in there and say, "Hey, here's the current product description I have. Here's" like, now you can give it photos of your product and stuff. It can analyze photos. I was playing with this the other day. You can give it a photo. You can do all kinds of stuff and say, "Here's my current product description. Here's 5 photos of it. Here's what here's my top 15." You can start feeding this thing data. Here's a spreadsheet with all my product reviews, what people liked about it. Here's some of the negative reviews that they had of it. Write a better description for it. And within, like I said, 20, 30 minutes, it'll smoke anything you'd have done without that. That's weeks worth of work.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's weeks worth of work. And like you're saying, and it's lots of money that you don't have to spend.
Yeah, it's 20
And
bucks a
and for
month
most
to
of the folks that
get
we
the
deal
best features, right?
yeah, that's right. And for
Yeah.
most of the people that we deal with, they're not in the space where they can go drop 2 or 300 grand
Mhm.
on a Dan Kennedy prodigy
Yeah,
that understands how to do that. So, yeah, I think if folks learn how to leverage it the proper way, it's a game changer.
it is. And the problem is if you're not using it, all your competitors are, right? It's
Yep.
not that hard to use, right? I'll give you everybody a quick lesson right now. Treat AI like as if it's an employee. So you tell it what you want it to do, describe how you want it to do it, ask it if it has any questions of you before you tell it before you have it do the task. So you say, "Hey, I'm hiring you as a copywriter. I want you to write a sales copy about my product. Here's everything I know about my product." And then you say right before you so say, "Before you rewrite the copy for it, before you rewrite the description, do you have any questions that you need of me to do a better job?" And it'll ask you 10 or 15 questions, just like an employee would. You answer all those, and then the output is amazing.
Well,
So
I think it's a great way a great way to think about it.
mm,
And I think if you do that and you put again, it's got the right data, then all of a sudden what it's gonna spit out is gonna be pretty impressive, and it's gonna help. I'm with you. So I think for anyone that's looking to sell a business over the next year, I agree with you. If you're not using it now, you need to use it. And if you treat it the right way, it's gonna set you up from a systems perspective, when I think about that, to have all the tools that you need for that new buyer to come in and go, wow, this is a really impressive asset. They've been smart with the way they've set this thing up, and now they can take over and run with it and they feel good about it. So, and I think that's the key for any buyer when they're coming in, they're going to look at the asset and go, is this going to produce income the way that I need it to? Is it going to be a smarter investment than hopping into another space? And I think if they've set it up properly, then it could be.
it won't be long before the different tools out there become a little more advanced, and all that it's as simple as this. So once the Chat GPT and those actually have agents that can make changes, watch the responses, and then make changes again. Now you got a high-speed A/B testing model where somebody can go out, put out 2 pieces of copy, and then watch statistics based on what's coming off of that and make changes fairly quickly. Let's talk about kind of what's the process somebody needs to do to get ready because you're in the website space, e-commerce, SaaS and that type of stuff. Somebody's about to call you and go, "Hey," or let's take a step even further back. Somebody's got a side projects that's starting to take off and they see one of their projects minimizing, right? One of their projects is taking off and the other one, even though they need it for income, What are some of the pointers you can tell somebody to say, "Hey, this is the way you get ready. If you think you're ever gonna need to sell something, start this now."
Well, I love it whenever they're not ready to sell. Whenever they say, I want to exit 12 to 24 months from now,
Mhm,
and I want to be ready. Those are some of my favorite conversations. Sometimes when potential sellers call and they say, well, you're going to be disappointed because I don't want to do this right now. I say, no, I'm in this for the long haul.
mm,
And I want you to understand that if we set you up properly now, then it's going to be great 12 to 18 months from now or 24 months from now. So first is we're going to walk through financials and we're going to make sure, depending on whatever that, whether it's SaaS, whether it's e-commerce, whatever it may be, that their profit and loss statements, that their books look the way they're supposed to look. So we can give them examples and we can walk through what it should look like. And I'm going to let them know, we're going to highlight what are things that potential buyers are going to be really paying attention to. We're going to look at ad spend and different things. So we're going to just analyze their P&Ls and go, let's make sure these things are in the best shape possible and are as clear as possible to make sure that the buyer doesn't even have to wonder if you know what you're doing when it comes to finances. So that'd probably be step one. Step two would be we would walk through kind of a framework because as a COO, I think about systems and frameworks and that type of thing just from my past life. And so
mhm.
I want to help people think about that because again, if I'm a buyer, I want to make sure that what I'm buying is not just a job. I want to buy an asset that's going to produce cash flow over time. And is that return going to be worth it? Not just the money, but again, the time piece. And so the systems that you got in place are going to be a key factor for that. So do you have good, depending on your employees, do you have just good basic people systems in place? Are they contractors? Are they W-2? What does that look like? How often do you have to talk to them? Do you have good SOPs in place for the different things, just the clear documentation. So I'm going to look at P&Ls, the financial piece. I'm going to look at systems and processes. So that's my SOPs. Are things documented properly? And then the third thing that I'm going to look at would be owner involvement. And I would say, I want you to think about the seat that you sit in right now. And I want you to think about a new owner and would they want to do that or not? How many hours is it going to take? How much of your brain power and expertise does it require to run this thing day to day? And let's get those things out of your brain and either onto paper or onto someone else's job description. So that's a big thing. And then the kind of the fourth and final thing would be don't slow down.
Yeah.
Don't over the next 12 to 18 months, as you're thinking about exiting, the best thing you could do, even if it's minimal, is show some growth. Just give us a little bit. It doesn't have to be, maybe you were growing at 20, 30% clip the last several years. It doesn't have to be that, but just don't go backwards. Because if you don't, I guarantee you we can find a good buyer.
Yeah,
So those are three or four of the things that I think about.
we're always looking for all the buyers I know, it's like, we're looking for things that, is growing, that's on a good trajectory, that if we continue doing what it's been done, it's gonna be fairly profitable and work. I know a few people that do turnarounds and that type of stuff, but it's out of every 100 people I run into that wanna buy a business, 1 of them or 2 of them are both qualified and are looking for turnarounds, right? It
Yeah.
takes a very special skill set, and I can name a few guys that are really great at it. If you got a company that needs a turnaround, I know people that'll do it, but you gotta get a lower evaluation. They're gonna expect you to put some of the work in too. They're not gonna come in and do it for you, but it can be turned around and sold. I've often thought there was a space for you have incubators, right? Like the startups, there's
Mhm.
Y Combinator and all these different startups. I think there's a space for a incubator that says, "Hey, I think we're about to think about exiting in the next 2 or 3 years," and then they marry up with an incubator that has outsourced CFO and accounting to get the accounting perfect. Maybe even some, like a kind of a chief outsourced chief growth officer, like a guy like me who does this fractional chief growth officer, where we look for other companies to buy in and merge together and fulfill
Yep.
any gaps that are there and to maximize what that exit looks like.
Right.
There's a space in this market in both brick and mortar and in the e-commerce market for somebody to go, "Look, we're looking for companies that can tag up with us, we'll incubate you to exit." I know a bunch of people
Yep.
do it individually, but it's not like a Y Combinator or something like that where it's really formalized.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and I agree. I think that there are lots of right now great if I'm looking at the multiple ends, I feel like there's a lot of good incubators for startups,
Mhm.
like you're saying. I think on the back end now, man, over the last 3 or 4 years, there are a lot of great marketplaces that have been built that aren't brokerages that you where you can go in and evaluate deals.
Hmm.
So I think that that is there. So, but I agree. The middle ground. Let's just say the guy, or the gal who they did start an Amazon brand 3 or 4 years ago, and it's taken off, but they don't. They just don't know what to do now. They don't. How do I diversify my sales channels? How do I get my financials in order? All the things that you're talking about. I think there's a middle ground there that's a big market that's not being addressed. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, I would love to step into that and help because obviously as a broker on the back end,
Mhm.
it's much easier for us. And if you can establish that community, now buyers are coming saying, we know that what you're producing on the back end is a product that's ready to go.
Yeah.
That's a safe investment for them. So yeah, I definitely think there's a market for that. And yeah,
It,
love
I have to chew on that. I
tap
don't
into
want to do
that.
any more startups, but chew on the idea of like you need an in-house full blown accounting team that could do all the almost a forensic accounting team because you need to be able to take stuff off of napkins and put it into structure.
You really do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you could probably get away with buying a small forensic accounting team, a decent marketing, agency that knows how to market e-commerce, and then some really good operators like yourself and other people who really got the experience of not just operations, but formalizing chaotic operations, basically untangling the mess. And then you'd have a reverse incubator. You'd have a company that somebody could just marry up with, give some equity to, work with 3 or 4 years, and if it's done right, the exit would be worth way more than it would be if they just sold it by themselves without that help, right? So it's like free. Yeah, you got to give away 25, 30% of your equity, but your 1 million that you would have made today is worth 2 million even after the equity split because you're a better ran company and you let us work with you for
that's
2
right.
years. I think
Yep.
that's a play that a lot of people are trying to do in the merger and acquisition space, but they're not doing it in that Y Combinator mindset where they have a full suite of people who nurture them to that point. So how do people reach out to you? We're kind of running out of time here. So what's the best way for if somebody's got a website or an e-commerce site or a SaaS service or something that they would like to, or they heard something on here, they just want to connect with you. What's the best way for people to reach
Yeah.
you?
So email's great. So jharris@websiteclosers.com.
Mhm.
Reach out to me there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And then also have a website that they can go to, bigexit.co. So
Mm.
if you just go there, click contact me, we can chat from there. So yeah, those are a few ways. And I think it's important, like we said, whether someone is ready right now to exit or they just want to have that conversation of what do I need to do to be ready over the next 12 to 24 months, even better.
I'll give everybody a word of encouragement. Call him if you want, if you're thinking 12 or 24 months, because I promise you, it's a win-win situation. A lot of times people keep their businesses after they prep them for exit because they're easier to run, they're more systematic, and it takes a lot of the stress and stuff out of the operations because 'cause you've removed yourself a ways back, and you got a room to breathe and grow again. So, it's kind of the used car scenario to where you go have your car detailed because 'cause you're thinking about trading it in, and then after you get it all detailed out and got new tires on it, you want the max trade-in value, you look at it and go, why am I selling it? It's in pretty good shape. And then you end up keeping it for another year or two. Same thing happens with a lot of businesses. They get in there and they really prep them for sale. And then all of a sudden they realize they got an asset on their hands that is both generating income and not requiring a lot of time. And
Yep.
makes it a little harder to let go of it even at that point. So it's worth the effort whether you know you're going to sell or not. And if you're thinking about it at all and you want to go down and consider that process, definitely reach out to Justin here and see what he can help you do. And with that, I guess we can call it a show.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, man.
All right. I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries. ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the IT ExchangeNet.com/marketplace. How to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.